What's going on, guys? Matt Manduke here, and I am flying my drone actually right outside of where I'm sitting right now in Fontana, California, from the Werner terminal, because at the time where I was flying it, I was waiting for my truck to go in the shop, and actually now I'm just waiting for the mail to get my license back from, well, I was angry about Mardi Gras, and I'm about to resolve all those problems now. Now, as I took off, I realized that I'm in the middle of a whole bunch of truck terminals, including Werner, but there's an RL right next door, and there's apparently a Swift next to it. But I also realized that the mountains in the distance, despite the haze, were worth taking a look at, because, well, you don't get that kind of scenery everywhere, but you do get it in Southern California. So I take a look around, and yeah, you can see that the interstate runs right past here, and I do start looking at the interstate, and we look at the interstate some more before this video is over. But that's more or less all there is to see. That's really all that entertaining, but I take this flight anyway so you can see, you know, the mass of what is Fontana. Most of Fontana is truck terminals and industrial, and it's more or less the industrial area of LA, and LA doesn't like to have trucks in it, so you know, this is about as far as you go into LA, which is fine by me. I don't really want to drive in LA in my truck as much as I don't really want to drive in New York City in my truck, even though I have driven a car in New York City, and New York City is actually more complex than LA is as far as driving is concerned. The people in California cannot drive to save their lives. Now you can see all those blue trailers. They're the ones that are up for sale, so that is still Werner's property, and Werner actually has maybe the biggest terminal in this area, because they kind of own like a corner with those two lots, and like I said, they're all for sale, and that's like their fleet sales, and they are trying to get rid of all their blue trailers, which well, kind of sucks, because I like the blue trailers because they match my blue truck. But you know, hey, whatever, they want to get rid of them, and it's apparently easier to sell white ones, but they don't know that because they're not selling white ones, they're selling blue ones. And yeah, I do see blue ones that were sold and used to be Werners on the roads all the time, and well, that's where I can recognize them, and I'm going to continue to see them for years and years, because you know, they're going to keep selling these blue ones until there's none left in our fleet. But then people are going to keep riding them because, well, trailers last much longer than trucks do in most cases, because they're much less involved mechanically. But then I fly over here, and yeah, you can see some different colored trailers there, and that is not Werner's property. And I realized that, like, in the middle of this video that it was flying around, and I kind of ran out of things to look at. But this one here, I believe that's the RL property, which Werner is like tucked behind it, so like they have more street space, but Werner has more space, because here what I'm zooming in on is actually the terminal. So that's where the showers and the laundry is, and that's where they do their orientation, and they do have a roadmaster that's built into the terminal here, so they teach people to drive. You can see the red and the yellow, which are the shuttle vans. And then I start looking at the interstate, because, well, I think about the interstate quite regularly, and I look at that train, and I'm like, hey, there's no engine to that train. Well, they're pushing the train, and I actually do look so that you can see, and I zoom in so that you can see that there's two engines pushing those cars. And I was like, well, that's pretty cool to, you know, catch that. And on the other side of the railroad tracks, yep, there's more trucking terminals, and that one there might be a truck shop, but I don't know. I haven't gone there. And then, you know, I'm like, well, I can get some over the road footage here of actual interstates in California. You can see how many lanes wide that is. That's not necessarily any wider than it is in Dallas, but trucks are only allowed to use the right two lanes, even though I say that, and there's trucks in the middle lane, which is, you know, the third lane, but that's probably because the furthest right is an exit only lane to get off at that off ramp, or on ramp, off ramp, whatever, right there. And at the rate I'm going, I'm looking at the train, but I realized that the train's on a different track than those other cars. But I think it would have been cool if he would have coupled up and kept pushing those other ones. But I think that's a little bit more involved. And, you know, I'm going a little bit faster than the train, but not much, because my drone tops out at about 35 mile an hour. And I know those freight trains can do 60 and 70 because I see them, but not usually in California. You don't see them going that fast, but I do see them going that fast quite often. And freight trains are a big thing out west, more than they are on the east. Yes, you do still get freight on the east coast, but the stuff that's coming from China gets on freight trains, and they get it halfway across the country before they become intermodal trailers, where they just dump them on the trucks and let them take them wherever they got to go. You need trucks and trains to get everything where it's going. Then I noticed this big empty lot here, and that might be expansion for somebody, but you know, I don't want it. But there is a big empty lot, and it's right behind the Werner terminal, so maybe they'll expand. It would make sense, because there's two areas in the country that spend the most money, and it's Southern California and the Northeast, being New Jersey, New York, Philadelphia, Connecticut. You know, that whole area there spends, well, more money than Southern California does. But they're the two areas where you would want to have really big terminals. But as I come around, I realize that they're not actually connected, and it's closer to these other guys here, which they're actually behind the Werner trailers, Werner lot. You can see the Werner lot to the right, and you can see it actually on the other side of this terminal is another Werner, is the rest of the Werner terminal from where I launched at, and it looks like that open spot is probably where the Roadmaster is. But all those trailers to the left there, they're all Werner stuff, and you can see that it says Werner on them, and most of them are blue. And I think it's crazy that most of them are still blue, even though they're trying to get rid of all the blue ones. But then they're saying they're not going to get light blue trucks anymore, and that sucks, because I prefer light blue trucks because they match the blue trailers. And even after there's no more blue trailers, I still want the light blue truck, to remind people that that's, you know, kind of the Werner signature, the light blue truck. But it is what it is. I'm not in charge of sales, and it's not my branding. I'm not trying, and they're just switching more to the dark blue, as you can kind of see from the bobtails. And there's a lot of white trucks here, and I don't want a white truck. They don't do anything for me, and I get that they maybe don't pick up as much heat, so it's cooler in the summertime, but it's still, I don't want one, because I don't think they look cool, and I think the light blue ones do look cooler, especially, you know, when I'm not sitting next to another light blue one. And at this point, I'm looking at trying to land, and I'm trying to look up in the air and actually see the thing, but I don't have sunglasses on, and I'm not like really able to see it because I'm too far away. And that's mostly because I realized that I was using my zoom, and I was like, wow, I'm right here. No, I wasn't right here. I was zoomed in. I was much further back. I was like 350 feet away and 200 feet in the air, and I'm looking at landing, and I'm looking at that pole, and it looks a lot bigger on my screen than it really is. And, you know, considering the size of the drone, it really isn't that big. But I am working on landing now, and you still can't see me, which is kind of something that I like to try to do while I'm landing. Although it didn't happen with Mardi Gras, and I did actually crash when I was landing from on the roof, because the drone started seeing things in all directions and started backing off, and I'm just so happy that it didn't fall off the side of the 15th floor of my hotel, which wasn't even the biggest hotel in the area. Yeah, and then I looked down to try to get my placing, because I'm thinking I'm going to park in that parallel parking thing there. I'm going to land in that parallel parking there, which you can see the ramp to the flatbed, and, well, you can more or less see everything, but you can kind of see me when I peek up there. And as I'm looking down, I'm thinking I'm looking straight down, and it's not right. And then I look at it to actually physically bring it in, and, well, it looks like I'm further out than that. And now you've seen the Fontana terminal. You've seen quite a bit of Werner terminals if you've been watching my drone flights, because I do fly from terminals quite a bit, because that's where I have a lot of downtime. But I want to thank you for watching. I wouldn't do this without you. I'll see all my friends in my next video. Peace.